In the last video, I cut out a section where I ranted for 10 minutes about how stupid something one of the devs said was. And then I made a 15-minute rant, and then I cut that out as well, and then I made a separate 30-minute video going over my problems with the devs, and I still wasn't happy with how it came out. I've been working on this pretty much all week. This is the final cut, attempt number 4, and I'm pretty happy with the script. Before we begin, I should provide some context on what has sparked this conversation. First, watch this clip.
The bandits y'all keep bringing up, we are working towards them, as we said just a minute ago, and that's where we're going to try to stay focused on that as best as we can.
We are, just so you know, when we're reacting to feedback and we're changing our production plan, we are effectively delaying bandits. Just so you know. So when you request a lot of stuff and you come in numbers and you ask for it and we say, all right, we're listening, we're going to do this, that costs us time.
Now, the problem with that clip and the thing that the community has kind of been criticizing the devs for, Rick essentially shifts the blame of the bandit delay onto the players for essentially not being happy with 2.0 and daring to talk about it. And in that last video, I mentioned how he was objectively just incorrect and that it was our fault. And I saw a few people that actually disagreed with that, arguing that he was just being literal in the sense that these changes will delay bandits. And that is true, but the problem here is clearly the blame shifting, and the purpose of this video is to point out exactly in 3 different ways how the blame lies solely in the Fun Pimps' hands. The correct thing Rick should have said was a very simple, hey, sorry we made these changes and you didn't like them, now we have to fix them and this will unfortunately delay bandits. You see how they take accountability for their mistake in that, rather than blaming us for voicing our displeasure with some really shitty features. So, on the off chance he or any of the other devs see this, I would like to illustrate precisely why bandits are delayed. At least from my perspective on the outside, there could be even more reasons on the inside that this is happening, but none of these reasons are the player base's fault for not liking the things in 2.0. Sit back, relax, enjoy some uncomfortable truths. Reason number 1. Bandits are delayed, and this is very simple. It's a mere reorganization of words. Bandits are not delayed because the players complained that they didn't like 2.0. Bandits are delayed because the Fun Pimps failed to deliver an update the fans liked. Do you see how that simple rewording completely puts the blame where it actually belongs? The people who made the bad features are the problem, not the people who voiced their displeasure with them. But let's elaborate a little bit more. Why precisely can we be sure that it's the Fun Pimps' fault and not some mass hysteria from the fans, as if that isn't a silly idea to begin with? Well, quite simply, the Fun Pimps' entire reason for existence is to deliver the game we want. Now, to the uninitiated, that might sound rather entitled, or you might think, no, their job is to make profit and things like that, and I would forgive you for thinking that from the outside looking in at a first glance, but allow me to explain why that is not the case. This game is not a hobbyist labour of love. It is not a case of the Fun Pimps being a development studio who decided to make a game that they wanted to make and they started making it and let us in on the fun. No, the Fun Pimps in 7 Days to Die simply do not exist without the fans. This is not a self-funded game, i.e. it's not coming out of the developers' pockets. This is not a corporate-funded game, i.e. Microsoft hasn't given them a budget to do what they want with, or there isn't shareholders who they need to keep satisfied with certain profit margins. The game is made by the devs for the players and is funded directly by the fans. Directly. This game is only funded by 3 things as far as any of us are aware. Sales of the game, money from the original Kickstarter, and merchandise sales. All of which come pretty much directly from fan to dev, with Steam taking some portions of the profit on the way there. If the Fun Pimps were merely hobbyists, doing whatever they wanted to do, they would be right to be annoyed at people asking for things. If the Fun Pimps were being kept on a short leash by EA, they'd be right to be frustrated at players wanting one thing while their parent company forces the other. But neither of these are the case. The Fun Pimps are meant to be making a game that we like, and in the end, when they make that game and everybody's happy with it, their sort of reward for executing the thing that the fans wanted is they now just have a development studio that they can do whatever the hell they want with. It's a transaction. We get 7 Days to Die, you get the Fun Pimps, because the Fun Pimps were 3 people when this game started. They didn't have a studio, they didn't have money, they weren't a thing. They are now an actual development studio with a building, funding, brand deals, 40+ employees, because we directly funded them into that position, and we have not received the finished version of 7 Days to Die that we are all happy with. The fans are central to this game's development, or rather, they were supposed to be. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case for a very long time, has it, Rick and or Joel? Let's cast our minds back to the Kickstarter and look at this one line that is still on there today. We realize the importance of growing a strong vision with the support and passion of the people we're making the game for. We want to build more than a game, we want to build a community and relationship with our customer, taking input, feedback, and ideas early on and working them into the game. It's not just our game, it's everyone's game. Does that sound like 7 Days to Die in 2025 to any of you? Because it certainly doesn't to me. What happened to those Fun Pimps? The ones that understood fundamentally that it was their burden to make the game players actually wanted to play, and in return they would have the development studio of their dreams to do whatever the fuck they wanted with. Somewhere along the line, Fun Pimps shut down more and more lines of communication, shut down more and more criticism, and more moderators are put in the way of fans so that barely any of our feedback makes it back to the devs, presumably because the devs don't want to hear it anymore. The only developer who has had consistent back and forth communication with the players in past years is Fatal. We only really see anyone else for a few months a year, and then they vanish and come back with updates half the players don't even like. And by then, it's too late to fix anything, but we'll get to that. Also, I have noticed quite recently that Joel has been communicating a little bit on Reddit. He was talking rather, how do I say, abrasively about the jars. And here we can see Joel's post. We took out jars because there was never any survival element to them. You could scoop up some sand, craft 5,000 jars, and never have any struggle with water ever again. There was never a decision to craft this new cool shiny thing, or have water to drink. It was so easy to have endless water that it shouldn't have existed. Nobody ever spent a nickel on water, etc. If we brought them back, there would have to be some kind of balance, like you can't craft them, dying or falling has a chance to break them in the inventory, or maybe restrictions on filling them, or murky water can only make distilled water that isn't super safe to drink. You probably have to load the dew collector with jars too. This is the bit that's just a real slight insult though. Is it the realism you liked, or that it was easy? He just had to, and this was fine until he got to, or that it was easy. That's so Joel of him. Now, I have actually answered what I think they should do with jars in that post, but I'll save it for another video. I have a series of suggestion videos I'd like to make, so let's not bloat this one any further with that. My point is, the fundamental truth is that players cannot be blamed for a delay when the entire reason your company even exists is from direct fan funding. No corporate overlords was exactly what you wanted, and you got it. The cost is delivering a 7 Days to Die that the fans who funded you into existence actually like. So never in any situation can the fans be blamed for a delay or problem in this game, because we're the people you're supposed to be making the game for. At some point, you got it in your head that this was actually your game and you could do what you want with it. And in a sense, that's factually true. There is nothing we can directly do to stop you. However, if you want your studio to exist after 7 Days to Die, you'd better make sure there's a community with enough goodwill left to buy your next game. And let me ask you, do you think that alienating, ignoring, and shifting blame onto people is a good way to get a second round of money out of them after what? Presumably 14 to 15 years of development on one game? I don't think it is, Joel and Rick. I think you're being short-sighted. For a 15-year development cycle, which is what I'm guessing it's actually going to take, you had better make sure the game you deliver is excellent if you want people to join in on the next one. And you're not doing that. Now on to reason number 2 bandits are delayed. You do not communicate with us in the correct way. Now, this comes with the caveat that when I wrote this original part of the script, Joel had not posted that on Reddit, so it's nice to see that they have maybe started doing this, but we're just going to operate under the assumption that that is currently a strange thing that has happened, that they actually reached out to us. If they do continue doing it, then just ignore this section in future. What I mean by this is what the typical 7 Days to Die development cycle is for those who are uninitiated. An update comes out, we give feedback, the devs listen to some of it, and then plow ahead on making the next major update, mostly without even talking to us. Then after about 10 months, we get dev streams and we get shown what they've spent the last 10 months making. Then by that point, it's far too late. The worst features are already way too invested in to throw away, and there's not enough time to fix it without having a 2-year development cycle, for example. This is simply a bad development methodology, and my simple suggestion would be to adopt a modern one used by indie companies. Now, Fun Pimps like to actually not consider themselves an indie because they are, quote, too experienced to be indie. Well, some of you have been alive for 60 plus years, and despite having lots of experience in the game development field, you have a poor grasp on the English language and what some of the words in it mean. Indie means independent. That's all that means. The Fun Pimps are indie. That means they do not have the time, personnel, or resources to deliver a high-quality product in a timely manner in the fashion they have been doing for the last, let's call it 8 years, whenever Alpha 17 came out and this game started to slowly shit the bed. Smaller software companies tend to lean towards things like Agile and RAD, and basically those are development methodologies that focus on collaboration with users, rapid prototyping, and iteration. 7 Days to Die could have been done half a decade ago, and it could have been good if instead of disappearing for a year and then finding out we hate your changes, you had just told us before you started doing what you were going to do, what you were going to do. Had you asked us beforehand if you should remove jars, we would have said no. Had you asked us if you should change learn by doing, most of us probably would have said no. Had you asked us if we want Boy Scout badges and biome smoothies or stupid fantasy style zombies that you're currently having to rework, most of us would have said no. Then you could have saved, across your whole game's development, years of development making shit we didn't like and having to fix it. Instead, rapidly communicating back and forth with your users before you spend a year and presumably waste millions of dollars on something we don't like. This would have delivered a game we would have obviously liked much faster. And that's not to say the fans are of course infallible. For example, I personally think the people asking for the learn by doing crafting system back really don't know what they're asking for there. I think they're really more voicing a distaste for what they do have rather than a real preference for what learn by doing crafting was, because there are dozens of other crafting progression systems that you can adopt that would be better than anything we've had before in this game, and that includes learn by doing. But indeed, they may prefer learn by doing over what we have. I just think we need to expand our minds a little bit. There's other things we can do here, people. So sometimes the fans will ask for something and it ends up being shit, and you would of course have to fix that. But most of your worst ideas, Fun Pimps, could have been stopped in their tracks a year early by just asking if we thought that sounded like a good idea, instead of asking it way after you've invested everything in it. It's a pretty simple idea, actually. It's a very ancient idea, the idea of measuring twice and cutting once. It's common sense for those of us who don't have infinite resources and time when making something. The third and final reason that Bandits ended up being delayed is because, quite simply, you made a bad roadmap. In the 2.0 Town Hall, a lot of the features you defended were defended in the name of setting up 4.0. So why on earth, Fun Pimps, did you plan on putting a year between 2.0 and 4.0? And let's be real, it'll be 2 years. You have never delivered on the 6-month development cycles, and you're not going to until you start streamlining your methodology and actually start including your end users. If you wanted to make 2.0 full of things to set up 4.0, then why didn't you just make it 3.0? And then we could have had Bandits done for 2.0, and the updates would be in the correct order. But the updates are out of order, and honestly, I'm starting to think that's maybe you're just not capable of making the Bandits at this point. It's been like 6 years since you've started saying Bandits are in the next update, and you keep saying we want to get them right. Sorry, buddy, you should have been able to absolutely nail guy with a gun who shoots at you and runs around in less than half a decade. I mean, there are people who can take the Unity engine that you use, make a voxel-based world, and have rudimentary first-person shooter enemies set up in less than a month in their spare time. And you can't take your existing game, your 40-person studio working full-time, your existing AI systems, and make man with gun who shoot at player and move. That's taken 6 years. These had better be some fucking S tier bandits in the end, Fun Pimps. These guys had better be able to take cover, flank the player, evaluate their chances in combat, and become more or less aggressive depending on that. They'd better never get stuck on a fucking wall. They'd better not be as stupid as the zombies. They should be able to understand their own weapon strengths and weaknesses. I do not want to be shotgunned from across the map by an idiot who thinks it's gonna work. They should be able to set up ambushes and patrols, understand your weapon's weaknesses and adapt to them accordingly, like not approaching you when you have a shotgun. In short, these had better be some of the most advanced AI we've ever seen from an indie company, because if these bandits come out and they're basically just zombies who stand still and shoot at you, you're going to be laughed at into the ground for the next 100 years for wasting 6 years on making shit. So, no pressure, but pressure. It's not your fans' fault. Anyway, that is all I have to say for this video. If you would like a summary of the 2.0 dev town hall stream that pissed me off this bad, check out this video popping up on screen right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.